Hi, I'm E.D. Lewis and welcome back to my channel. E.D. Lewis Reviews back with a new video. This is the Faces of Horror tag. It was created by Juan at Plagued by Visions, and I was tagged by Regina at Regina's Haunted Library. This is a very interesting tag, kind of got some deep subjects to it, so let's dive right in. There are 6 prompts, and the first prompt is a horror story that scared or disturbed you. Um, this one, 2 came immediately to mind with this story, with this prompt. One is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. The other is Dracul by Dacre Stoker and J.D. Barker, one I've talked about many times before. But I think I'm going to more or less go with The Haunting of Hill House, which I have right here, by Shirley Jackson, because there are some of the scenes in this book that I thought were rather terrifying, and it just kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies, because this book kind of dives deep into the psychological, and Dracul is more of, it got under my skin more or less, and maybe a little paranoid, which I guess the paranoid would be a little psychological, but to me, well, not to me, I mean, fear is, but fear is psychological. So I kind of went with Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House because of the psychological horror and some of the scenes, especially the scene with Eleanor and Theo is one of them in particular that I think is absolutely terrifying. Even in the original movie from the 60s, I think that scene is terrifying. So, but that's one that scared or disturbed me. I can't really think of one that disturbed me. Prompt 2. Well, yeah, I guess there would be some that disturbed me, but it'd be more or less just kind of ideas and themes, because horror is oftentimes disturbing. So, but anyway. 2, a horror story that depressed you or made you cry. There hasn't been any horror books that have made me cry. So, I'm gonna have to go with one that kind of, I guess, no horror book has really depressed me either, but I'm gonna have to go with The Tale of the Body Thief by Anne Rice. It was the most recent Vampire Chronicles book that I read, and Lestat realizing his mistake and that he had no idea how he's going to get back to being what he was, because in the story, this is not really a spoiler because I think most people know this, and I think it's in most synopses anyway, that he gets a chance to swap bodies with somebody and he gets to live as a human for a while. It's kind of depressing, seeing, him, well, not just when he's, kind of like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? It's also kind of like, how he looks at humanity and some of the mundane things that we do. He makes them seem rather depressing and kind of like, never looked at it that way. Like, this is going to be kind of a gruesome, like going to the bathroom. He's absolutely revolted by it and stuff, and it's kind of depressing the way he describes it in the story. So I guess the closest one would be The Tale of the Body Thief. Number 3, a horror story that made you laugh. Now, the closest one I could come up with off the top of my head would be Craven Manor by Darcy Coates. The character of Daniel, I'm trying not to spoil anything because it was some of the things that made me laugh would be kind of spoilers. But it has to do with Daniel and the cat, because there is a cat he finds on the grounds at Craven Manor. That's kind of funny. Some of the interactions he has with the cat, especially later on, are kind of amusing. And just some of his ultimate reactions to the goings-on at Craven Manor just kind of, struck me as funny. So I don't generally laugh at horror. I mean, if I find something funny, it's not maybe intended to be funny, but yeah. But that one I think is some intended humor. So number 4 is a horror story that made you angry. Um, I went with Snowblind by R. St. Clair, BookTube and HorrorTube's very own Regina at Regina's Haunted Library, because I did not dislike the book or novella. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. It was the characters that made me mad. It was especially the main character's husband, Hosa. Gosh, he's a bastard. And so some of his things, when it goes back and tells backstory and also how he acts toward the women and the things that he's done to her, to the main character whose name escapes me. Yeah, he's a bastard. So yeah, the character made me angry because his abusive nature and stuff. So number 5 is a horror story that is important to you. I could probably say lots of stories with this one. I mean, I'll throw a couple examples out, then I'll tell you my main one. I mean, Interview with the Vampire was important to me for various reasons, personal reasons. Dracula, Frankenstein, Any Dark Shadows book. With my gothic sensibilities there. But the one I guess I'm going to say that is important to me is not really a book or a story. I guess it tells a story. It's a poem, and it's The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Because that was kind of my introduction, because Poe in general, but especially The Raven was the one that interested me from the very beginning. Poe more or less was my introduction to horror. So a lot of people, their introduction, it seems like, was like Goosebumps and stuff. I didn't read Goosebumps. I have never read a Goosebumps book at all. Or Fear Street, I have read one of those. Or The Point Horror, or something like that. My introduction was Edgar Allan Poe, and it was The Raven. And number 6, a non-horror story that you consider horror. Now, I have done a review on this one, and I did include it as HorrorTube, though it's probably not considered horror, but it has a lot of horror elements, and it really seems to connect a little bit to Frankenstein and to Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Both horror and gothic stories. It is the gothic romance novel Dark Desires by Eve Silver. It has some frightening stuff in there. Not to mention, it's got some Jack the Ripper-esque stuff going on in it too, and so I just consider it horror, even though it's probably not. So, if you ask me, I consider that one a gothic horror story. So, the atmosphere, which of course the atmosphere is supposed to be gothic. It's dark gothic, is what the series is, and yeah, it's a lot of the goings-ons and the happenings in it that just, especially the climax of the story, is kind of horrific and kind of thriller-like too. Well, that's my answer. There's no prompt that says go to tag anybody. I'm not tagging anybody specifically. Because I'm sure lots of people have been tagged or have done this by the time this video goes up. If you haven't done this tag, you are tagged. So, but anyway, that's all I got for you, and I'll see you all next time with an all new video. Bye-bye.